In today's episode, I am joined by the world famous, Mr. John Lee. He is a social media expert, property investor, business mentor. He has worked with some of the biggest names in the world. And today, we are going to be doing a special behind the scenes episode on how you can use social media to go and find, fund, fill and flip property deals so you can become a property multi-millionaire. John, it's awesome to have you here, dude.
Oh, brother, it's always great to be with you, man. Always great.
Many years. I've known you for many years now. We're in the same mastermind group together. You're out there traveling the world and inspiring and motivating millions of people. You've got a fantastic brand, huge property portfolio. Look, where did it all start for you, John? Just take us back to a time in your life where you knew you wanted to become an entrepreneur and property was the vehicle for you at that time.
You know, Liam, I didn't do particularly well in school. Like, you know, like people are like A students and I was like the F student. Like if I got a C, that was like an A for me. So I did arts, I became an animator and we worked on special effects. And I remember like I was on 36,000 a year, which is a decent salary, you know, but in London, it's not that much money. Yeah. So then I thought to myself, how can I make money faster? And I'm sure you read this book, Rich Dad Poor Dad. Yeah. It talks about the concept of making passive income. So at that point I thought, I've never heard of that before. So passive income, you can make money without having to trade time for money. So then I thought, what's the fastest way to make money? And I remember listening to a podcast by a guy called Dolph DeRuse. And he was trying to get a job for a year, couldn't get a job. One day he sells a property, makes 36,000 in one transaction. At the same time, he gets a job offer for 36,000. I'm like, you know, it makes no sense to go on a job and work all that time. So then I decided to invest in real estate. I decided to learn how to invest, how to find deals. And for me, that point is I wanted to make sure that no one could ever fire me again, right? Because I was in a job, I was good at my job, but my boss got a little bit intimidated. And so he decided to let me go. Okay. Right? So I was like, you know, I'm never gonna let that happen again. Yeah. So then I thought to myself, how can I make my year's salary? If I could just buy and sell one property and make my entire year's salary and then take the rest of the year off, then that would be great. And that's exactly what I did.
Great. So if you can just go back to getting that first deal. So you did your education, which is important, invested in yourself. How did you decide at that time what was the right strategy for you? Because there's so many different things you can do in property. You've got rent to rent, you've got deal packaging, commercial conversion, single lets. If there's someone listening to this now, not sure what is the right property strategy for them, what would you say? And what made you decide your initial property strategy?
Well, the idea is to just replace my income, right? So at the time I started on 21,000, then 26,000, then 36,000, then I got a pay rise to 60,000. At that time I was making a transition. Like, do I want to take this job and make an extra, 30,000 on top? Problem with that is it comes with more responsibility. More responsibility, less time. So what I realized in this industry is that you've got to have more time. The more time that you have, the more you can implement, right? Yeah. So at that time I decided, okay, if I just want to buy and sell one house, one of my first deals I did in a place called Aldershot, I bought it for 85,000 and I sold it for 185,000.
Wow.
So straight away it's 100 grand's worth of cash there. And so that allowed me to leave my job and pursue this full time
and go straight into property. That's awesome. Yeah. And it's like, once you know how to do it once, you know how to do it over and over and over and over again, right? Yeah. What were some of the most important fundamentals getting into property that then helped you really scale? What were some of the things that you were doing? How did you become better at building relationships? A lot of people have a lot of fear around the agents or the investors and putting in offers and being rejected. All of this stuff holds people back from getting out there and just finding great deals. So what were some of the key fundamentals that really worked well for you?
I think one of the biggest challenges is that people are waiting for deals to come to them, right? And you can be waiting a long time. Like I would go to all these agents, say, oh, you got any good deals? Give them to me. But like, you and 10 million other people, right? Yeah. So they don't flow to you unless you create a magnet to attract them to you. So what I realized is that this whole concept of the best known beats the best. You can have the best product or service in the world, but if no one knows that you exist, how are they going to come to you? Like, if I want to get investors, I need to have deals. One thing I learned from my first mentor, Ying Tan, I sold my car and I paid him £10,000 for 2 days of his time. And one thing he told me was this: you don't really need money to get the deals, right? Because if you find the deal, the money will find you. And so that really flipped my whole mindset. I thought, oh my God, I don't really need to have the money. But if I get the deal, then I'll find the people that want to invest in the deal. And so this was a big mind shift for me. And this honestly was a big paradigm shift. So that's what kind of got me started. And I thought, oh my God, I don't even need the money, right? I just need to find the deals and then everyone will come to me. So it positions it differently.
Yeah, and I think I've seen people that have got money and they sometimes are much slower at getting the deals than people without the money. Because if you don't have the money and your back's against the wall, you've got no other choice but to go out there and seek the money, build relationships, and start doing no money down deals. Same position I was in 10 years ago. Lost my business, minus £392,000. My back's against the wall. I'm at a property event. They're talking about no money down property investing. There I am running to the back of the room, investing in training and mentoring. And 10 years later, £31 million worth of deals and 11 million in joint venture funding. So it's everything's possible. And it only takes a few golden nuggets and then the action to go and make that happen, right? So no money down property investing. When working with investors, what would you say are some of the real key things to be aware of to get investors over the line, to keep them happy? What's been your experience?
What I realized is you talk to a lot of people that say, yeah, I'm interested in that deal. When you get the deal, you present it, the money's not there. So what I realized, you flip it the other way around. You say, look, because you want like a 3-strike rule. First of all, if you're going to bring investors on, vet them, right? Okay, how much money have you got? Okay, I've got $500,000 to invest in property, right? But they don't tell you that they need to liquidate some shares or they need to refinance their house or like, okay, show me a statement. Right? Because I'm not going to give you deals if you don't have the money ready, because like these BNB deals, everybody wants them. Right? As soon as people start sniff, I had a surveyor once value my property, down value it and bought the property himself. The same deal. I kid you not. Because there's a lot of money involved. Right? So you need to vet your investors. Right? Do they have the money there? Can they show you some income statement? Right? Also, are they sophisticated? This is the first time they're doing it. Another issue I had is, I want to invest in deals. Deal comes along, you call them up and they're asking a million questions. What if it's a rental? What if that's not the market value? And there's all this like doubt. You don't want to deal with unsophisticated investors. That's why people need to attend your programs to learn about property and to learn how all that structure works so they get the confidence, right? And then they can work with smart investors. No, in Silicon Valley, we call them smart money, dumb money.
Okay.
Smart money is what else you're going to bring to it. Do you know can you bring something else to the table? Dumb money is, okay, I just put money in. Right? So you have to decide. So that's one thing. When you're also pitching an investor, there's only 2 things they really look forward to. When they're going to get the money back, and what's the security. If you can solve these 2 issues, I mean, like the first investor, I had a lady, I didn't have the money to buy the property. So I had to go and join these networking events and find people to give me the money to do it. So, and at that time I understood that, wow, there's people that can give you money to buy property. I never knew that. But they don't tell you it's a very high interest rate. Right? So when I found these deals, I'm like, okay, maybe I should do it smartly so I don't take the money until I'm going to flip that deal or unless I'm going to refinance it. So there's a lot of these things that are untold unless you've got experience in this. And so with investors, it's always got to be a win-win. Right? They put the money in. What do they want? Do they want a cut of the deal? Do they want equity? Do they want a percentage? Do they want just a return on investment?
What typically worked better for you? Did you prefer doing the equity split? Did you prefer just raising money on fixed rate return? Have you done a bit of both? Pros and cons?
The main one, honestly, one of my rules is every time I buy a property, it's got to be at a discount. Whether I'm buying property in central London or Manchester or Sheffield, like it's got to be below market value because you make money when you buy, not when you sell. So I was always having enough margin in there to be able to pay that person the interest. So I thought, okay, worst case scenario, I'll hold the interest for 6 months. Is there enough margin for 6 months to be able to pay that investor back? If the answer is yes, I'll do it. If the answer is no, then I'm in 2 minds about it. Another thing a lot of people can do is they can create an SPV, right? Or if you have friends together, you want to buy a property, a lot of the times you can create SPV and you take an overriding carry. So that means, let's say a property is worth $1 million. And you get 4 people to put 250,000 in, but you control the deal. You say, look, you guys put 250 in, we'll buy this property and I'll take a 10% override, which means now you own a property without having to put the money, you just found the deal and you structured it.
Yeah, there's actually so many different ways in which you can do the deal. That's one of the great things about joint ventures. It's like going in with a blank piece of paper. But I love what you said. You've got to make sure that you're secure, they're secure. Is there any type of security? Are you going to do a profit share? Are you going to borrow the money on loan notes? I've done quite a few no money down deals. Typically now, if I'm doing a bigger development, then I don't mind doing some type of profit share, equity split. But if I'm just buying houses and I don't want to use any of my own money, I'll just borrow the money on fixed rate return, 5 or 6%, buy it for cash, BRR it out, pay the money back out, and then you've got a house for free. Sometimes when you say to people, you can get houses for free, they think we're absolutely nuts. What do we say to those people?
Well, technically it's not for free. It's the way you structure it.
Great.
Right? It's like marketing, right? If you put $1 million into marketing, but you make back $1 million, is your marketing free? Yes or no?
Yeah.
Right? It's free. It's like a machine. You put, when you go to Vegas, you have those little slot machines.
Yeah.
You put $1 in and $2 come out. It's a return. So when we say free, technically it's not free, but the way it's structured, it becomes free because you get your money back. So for example, if I buy a property for $1 million, I'll give you a good example. So I bought a property in central London, like zone 1, right? It's 830,000. Today it's worth 1.5 million.
Wow.
So is it free? Right? So I put the money, I take it back out. I actually get money back on refinance. Okay, my interest goes up a little bit. I'm renting it for $1,000 a week. Still profitable. Right? So then it becomes okay, you put the money in, but when you get it out, it's cost you nothing. That's why people look at investment and what's your return on investment, what's your payback period. If your payback period is within 3 years, it's good.
Yeah, I like 3 years as well. So people tuning into this now, they want to start scale a property business. They've run out of money. They're working too hard. They don't have access to big pots of cash. We're talking a lot about raising investor finance. What could be a step-by-step process for them to start finding these investors? Where are they? Where do they find them? How do they start building these relationships?
Well, first of all, they need to join Assets for Life. I know you guys, and by the way, anyone watching this, Liam runs some incredible events on real estate, so make sure you check it out. So I would go to places like that. I mean, that's actually how I started. My second mentor was a guy called Ranjan Bhattacharya. This was like 20 years ago. And that's where I found a lot of investors. Like, you want to go to the place where the people hang out.
Great.
Right? So you attract a lot of investors. And if you go there, they get to learn from you, all the strategies that you teach, the advanced strategies. I know you're developing villas now. You're building your own, big buildings. And so people need to learn and be in the environment. That's number one. Number two, they've got to add value. What else are you bringing to the table? So that's why when I look at how social media started, I started using YouTube, right? And I started doing, here's how you get deals from agents. And people would actually find my video and they would contact me and say, John, how do you get these deals? And then people would find the deals, but they couldn't negotiate them. So I used to have a service called Deal Closer. This is 20 years ago, right? Wow. And people used to send me deals and I had to pick up the phone. This is how I marketed myself. I'd record the phone calls and then I'd put them online and people would listen to them and they go, oh my God, John, that's a really good, and I would beep out all the sensitive information. And people would listen and go, John, that call was amazing. Can you negotiate my deal? I said, sure.
Yeah, sure, come.
And I'll just take 1% of the fee that I would negotiate.
Great.
So that's how I also picked up a lot of deals as well. So that's one vehicle of adding value where that person gets there, but what, actually I made a mistake. I shouldn't have taken 1% of the purchase price. I should have taken 20% of the deal.
Yeah. Well, you could have done with this because it's a skill set that you had which they haven't got, and that's worth whatever someone's willing to pay for it, right? Yes. So that's important. So you're talking about social media and YouTube and doing these videos, and you are a master at helping people use social media for whatever it is they want to do. And we know we're in a world which is changing forever with TikTok and YouTube and Instagram and the algorithms and what do we do? And it can become so overwhelming for people. One of the ways in which I've raised a lot of money is via social media to find investors, build relationships. But if someone was starting out right now, or they want to scale their property business and they really want to tap into social media, could you give some insights? Where do they even begin? Because it can get overwhelming really, really quickly.
Here's the problem. A lot of people are trying to use social media and become an influencer. Okay. They're trying to become a content creator, creating content. But actually, business owners, it's not about creating content. It's about not content creation, but it's the documentation of the process. For example, I have a friend, all she does is she goes around people's properties, she buys them, and then she gets a sledgehammer and knocks down the walls, refurbishes it up, and documents the process.
Okay.
People watched it before, they go, oh my God, this is a mess. And next it's beautifully developed. Investors contact her and say, I want to invest in your next deal. So actually, 10 years ago, it's about, I want to get a million followers, I want to get lots of engagement, I want to go viral. It's not about that anymore. It's about getting the right views. I don't care if your video has 10 views. How do you know that 10th person is not the person that's going to write a check to fund your next development? You don't know. How do you know out of the 1,000 views that you get that one of those people is not someone who's desperate, who just got divorced, who lost their job, and they contact you because they want to buy the property? You don't know. So it's not about getting millions of views anymore. You see, there are different ways to monetize on social media. You can have distribution, like a lot of people that use TikTok, they have a TikTok shop now, so they can sell lots of things, like thousands of units of it, and you use it to sell something. I don't use it to do that. I use it to attract opportunity. So whether it's getting a book deal, whether it's getting my speaking engagements now, my minimum fee is 100,000 per keynote. So if I'm speaking, that's the minimum I make.
Yeah.
Right. So, but that comes from people seeing my speeches online. For example, if you go to I look at Instagram as kind of like a visual CV. So when you see it, it's like, this is the stuff that I do. And then people click on the link and they'll go to my website, johnlee.com. And then as soon as they go there, they'll see a speech.
Great.
And people will look at it and go, right, I want him to speak my next event. You asked me before, how do you get the stages with 5,000 people?
So you're using your social media to really take people into your life and demonstrate what you do as a person. So what I did when I first went on social media many years ago, like 10 years ago now, is if I went to a networking event, I'd take a photo of what I learned at the networking event. When I put in an offer, I'd take a photo or do a video of me putting in an offer. When the builders went on site, and it's exactly what you said, I would just document the entire process from start to finish. And people are like, fuck, you're a real action taker. Like, you're not just talking, you're not just talking the talk, you're actually walking the walk, and that's how you really build, credibility and social proof. But what if they're just starting off, John? They actually got no fucking following. Like, they're just starting out. Like, what do they go on all platforms? Do they just go on one platform? What do they do?
Well, the key is omnipresence, right? Yeah. So if you put one video on one platform, you have one chance of being noticed, right? If you put it on Facebook, so I call it the Fly GTI methodology: Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Google, TikTok, Instagram. Yeah. And of course, you can put Snapchat and X in there if you want, right? Which is Twitter. But the whole idea of this is, like, you don't know, like, how many times have like my parents share a link to me, someone shared it to them on WhatsApp, they message it to me, I click on it, it's a TikTok. My parents are now watching on TikTok. So things get shared. And that's when you create content. It's got to be a shareable piece of content. If you want this to go viral, it's pretty simple. Have a controversial title, make sure people feel good for sharing it, and it's got to create some kind of feeling. These three things create videos that go viral, but viral is not good because it's not qualified, right? I want people to watch something and then engage with what I have to offer.
Yeah, comment, share.
No, I don't mean engage like that. I'm talking about someone, for example, someone will watch this podcast and they'll contact me through a website, or they'll DM me on Instagram, and they'll say, oh, John, I just saw your interview with Lee and Ryan. Oh my God, it's amazing. I want to learn more about this. And so that's how you get, that's the way to market now. Yeah. Before people had a website, people go to the website does all the heavy lifting. You don't want that. You want people to be socially sold, and they've already made a decision. By the time they come to the website, they've either buy it or they don't buy it.
Yeah, and you've become a real expert around the globe now at helping not just property investors, but all types of business owners start, scale and grow their businesses, right? So if someone wants to come and understand how to do that, how can they do that? Just go to johnlee.com?
Yeah, I mean, all platforms, type in John Lee, you'll see the verified accounts. Great. YouTube, I just started a brand new YouTube channel, John Lee Success. But yeah, johnlee.com's got all my information on there.
Fantastic. So people are then scaling, they're building a property business. What could that then lead them on to? Now, that's how you started, and then you went from property to doing what you do now. Could you just talk us through that transition? Because property is really could be just a vehicle that can lead you onto something else. So how did property open up other doors for you that could help other people?
Well, first of all, every rich person I know has real estate. So number one, like you said, assets for life, it has to be a part of that person's life. Otherwise, it doesn't grow. You see, there's the difference between being rich and being wealthy. Business creates cash flow, but the cash flow invested creates wealth. Yeah. So yes, you have a business and then you can make cash flow from that. You take that cash flow, invest it into real estate, because real estate has intrinsic value. So if you hold property over, say, 10, 20 years, a big portion of that, especially if it's a repayment, gets paid down. So now you're building equity. And that's what people need to think about. It's not just about buying houses for the sake of buying houses. Because you have too many houses, then it's kind of like, when you play Monopoly.
Could be a headache, right?
Yeah, you play Monopoly when you get that car, repair all your houses, right? And it sucks up all your cash flow.
Yeah.
So you've got to have investments in other things and diversify to create cash flow in other fields to fund other things as well.
Yeah, great. So property is obviously one vehicle to do that.
Yeah.
What else can people do? Talking about wealth creation, I talk a lot about property being a vehicle to help you make money, manage money, multiply money. But there's one thing making it. We now need to show people how to manage it and then how to multiply it. So what are some of the things that people can do once they've made the money to manage and multiply? What other asset classes can people move into? Have you got any money saving, money making tips for people right now? Because, the world, they say, is in a crisis. You've got interest rates on the rise. You've got elections all over the world. You've got the budget in the UK out last week. People are fucking freaking out. Where actually, I see a lot of opportunity, and people like you and I, we're not freaking out. We're very calm. We know what to do next. So what can we share with people that's going to help them around their money? So
money is just think about it, it's just pieces of paper and metal. That's all it is. So what we're going to do with money, we need to put it into vehicles that multiply. So for example, stocks, shares, Web3, right? Digital currencies, and putting it into like right now, a lot of baby boomers just want to give up their businesses. Do you know you can buy someone's business, acquire it without using your own money? It's what we call a leverage buyout. So let's say the company makes $1 million and they want to sell it to you for, say, $2 million. You say, great. Year one, I make $1 million, I pay you $1 million. Year two, I make $1 million, I pay you $2 million. I've now cleared off the debt. Third year's mine. Yeah. And then if you get 10 of these companies together, you can put them into one, what we call a roll-up. And every company, let's say each one does 10 million each, the total value of that is 10 million. But because it's in a roll-up, it has a 10 times multiplier. Wow. It now becomes 100 million. So what you do with that is you can leverage through it, you can borrow against it. Elon Musk, he borrows against his shares. Yeah. Right? So there's a lot of ways you can do it. And if you want to create wealth, you do not want to create cash flow. Right? Because cash flow, you're working in it. Whereas the profit, right? Or really what you need is liquidity events. Right? So for example, you invest in a company, you don't have a seed round. So you put a small check size at 50, 100 grand. Then you have a Series A. Normally it's 10 times that price. So let's say I invest in this share and I invest $1, but now it's worth $100. Yeah. I can sell 50 of those dollars to you. Now I liquidate my share. Yeah. And now I've still got 50 shares left. Yeah, I get you. So the key actually is the reason why property is so important is because you hang around a lot of wealthy people. Yeah. Right? And you have a lot of network. So the people that buy property don't just buy property. I've got a guy that buys classic cars, supercars, right? That's why I always buy. I'm not super cars, right? But that's how I learned it. Yeah. My friend's like, do you know if you buy property under a company and it's VAT qualifying, you put 20,000 miles in it and you can export it to Asia and you get way more money back. Wow. I was like, oh my God, but he's a car dealer. Yeah. So he tells me all these different models to buy. Make sure you buy this one, not this one. Make sure if your car spec, it's got carbon, and that's why when you sell my car, it's got all carbon because it's easier to sell. Yeah, right? So this how you optimize it.
So it comes from being around the right people. Yes. You mentor people, I mentor people, we are mentored ourselves by other people. Yeah. How important is having a great mentor or mentors? For me, it's really important, but to you, how important is this?
So a friend of mine, his name's Glenn, right? He's a billionaire. So when I'd sit down with him, I asked him one question. Again, if you were me, what would you do? And he sat there and he thought for a little while. And he's like, John, if I was you, here's what I would do. Right now, you're in front of thousands and thousands of people every single month, but you're only charging a speaker fee. You're only getting paid 6 figures to speak, which for a lot of people is a lot of money, right? Yeah. But then I thought to myself, the leverage is not good because I get paid and I've got to fly all the way back and that's it. So I'm trading time for money. And he said, if I was you, I would use that to recruit and buy businesses. I said, well, how would you do that? He said, it's simple. Basically, you even get, so I came up with this strategy called FOE, F-O-E. So I speak on stage and I just ask people the question, how many of you got a business in it over 5 years? You're making profit, you're trying to grow it, and you want to go from 6, 7, 8, 9 figures. And then there's not that many people doing that, but a good, say 5, 10%. I say, here's my email. So I give my email address, they contact me, we set up a meeting, and then I go in and I charge FOE, F-O-E. I take a fee, my fee is $5,000 an hour. Yeah. I take an override. So if that company's doing 1 million, but I get them to say 2 million, anything above the 1 million, I take a percentage of.
Yeah, great.
And then people go, well, John, you're taking too much fee now. Let me convert it to equity. Then I take equity in the company. Yeah. So now I become a shareholder of that company.
Yeah, great.
So it's leverage.
Smart.
It's leverage, right?
Yes, you're traveling the world, going on stages, being paid huge speaker fees, and now you're investing into businesses.
There you go.
It's leverage. Paid a shit ton of cash.
It's leverage. But the things I really enjoy doing it. So you know what I realized as well, that you have to really enjoy. Like you asked me the question, like, do you still enjoy it? I love it. Yeah. I love doing the podcasts. Right. So there's 3 things I realized that if people are watching this, you want to get some. How do you understand the things you do are important? The thing that you do has got to bring you joy. Right? Do you get up every day and you want to do it? Right? Because if it feels like a chore, then that's probably not the right thing. Number 2 is, are you good at it? If you're not good at it, you need to upskill yourself, right? Anyone who wants to invest in property, you need to learn from the master, right? Liam, he's like, this guy's the real deal. Third thing is that you got to solve a problem on that, right? Meaning, is what you're doing, can you solve the problem uniquely? Because that part is the part where you get paid on. Yeah. For example, my skill set, I can look at any company, get them more leads, more sales, and scale it up. It's just a skill set. I've been doing it for 20 years. Yeah. Right? So that is important. If you meet those 3 things, then it doesn't feel like work. Yeah. And then so what I realized, well, Liam, that people, they design their life after their work or business. You want to design your life first and then slot in all your business stuff in there. I love to travel. I love traveling. So sometimes I got to get out of the UK because it's too cold, right? So I just applied for my visa for Australia. It's like, why do you want to come here? Oh, because the weather's nice at the time. Right, UK's too cold.
Oh man, I love that. So you can create a business around the lifestyle that you want to live, right?
Of course. Life is by design.
Yeah, by design. So there's a lot of people out there struggling right now, and really just to wrap up the podcast, you've shared so many wonderful insights and tips, and really, if you want to learn about social media and scaling your business, go and check out John Lee across his social media platforms. He really is a master at this stuff. For people out there right now, not sure what to do, what would be some words of wisdom to really help them get started on their property journey, to start building cash flow, making big lumps of cash, and getting them out of the fucking rat race that they're in, bitching and moaning and not living the life that they want because they're just one decision, one investor, one property deal away from a completely different life? What would you like to say to those people?
Well, there's really 3 things you got to focus on. One is you're going to be cash rich. If you're cash rich, then I would invest in other people's deals. Yeah. I would invest in other people's projects, because then you can just sit there and let them do all the work, right? But if you're not in a cash position, but let's say you're time rich, so that's how I started actually. One of my first business partners, he's rich, so he just funded me through the process as well. Yeah. So that's another way I was able to get started pretty quick. Third, if you don't have cash, you don't have time, then you've got to bring knowledge to the table. That's why people need to learn from people like you, go on your training programs, get mentor teachers in the real estate space. Because look, whatever you're charging for your fee, they're going to make mistakes on that in real estate. They only need one extra deal and it's paid for the fee, right? Yeah, exactly. So they've got to get educated. Like someone asked Warren Buffett, what is your biggest investment, right, that you would make today? And you would have thought he'd said Coca-Cola, Apple, and all these big companies. But he said, is in yourself. And everyone's heard that. But actually, how many times do people, they go, I can't afford that, and they'll go out and buy a Hermes bag or a brand new car or a Rolex watch, right? Like you can afford that, but you can't afford to put in when's the last time you put 100 grand into your brain? Right? You see, your brain is your biggest asset. People look at the ROI, but they never look at the COI. Yeah. Your COI is your cost of inaction. You see, I'll tell you a classic story. I used to work for a company called Touch Communication, like in my teens. At that time, I was calling people up to say, you should buy the domain names because websites can be big one day. I would call people, accounting firms, say, I have accounting.com. I would call marketing companies, say, I have marketing.com. I would call salespeople, say, I've got sales.com. I'd have all these massive domain names that at that time, had I had the education, I'm telling you to buy. I should buy it myself.
Billionaire from the back end.
I should buy it myself. But you know what? I didn't have the education. I didn't have the foresight. I wasn't able to see the value. And that's the mistake a lot of people make. They're and ahhing about spending 5 or 10 grand, right? But actually in that 1 hour with you, or in your case, I know people get to spend a long time with you. Like imagine all the golden nuggets you can give to them. It's like 10 times, but they got to take action on it. So that would be my final call to people is like, invest in yourself. You're the best investment that you can make.
Great, love that. You know what, John, it's been a pleasure having you on, man. I'm sure we'll do this at some point again in the future.
Yes.
You know, thanks for sharing so many golden tips and tricks with the audience. And look, the reality is, if we can do it, you can do it too. Get yourself a mentor, get around the right people, follow the correct strategy. You are just one deal away, one mentor away from a completely different life. Thanks for tuning into the podcast, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode. So if you are somebody that really wants to create more wealth for you and your future, then why don't you look at becoming a professional property investor where you can take advantage of the UK's #1 asset class and make passive income and also capital appreciation. So I'd invite you now to click the link in the comments or the bio and go and access my latest book called Property Success. This is where I introduce you to the 7 step-by-step system known as the Property Freedom Formula that I have used personally to do over £31 million worth of property development. So go and do that right now. I really hope you enjoy this asset, and it could be the difference that makes the difference and gets you up and running in the next 90 days.